Good morning and welcome back to Nonsensical Thoughts. Today, I think we'll talk about the mystery of Jack the Ripper. This may be a long one. So go ahead and grab your Bloom. They are one of the sponsors of the show that keep this going. Oh my god, sorry. It has been a long night. Why? I have no idea. But I feel like I slept so off and on. I feel like this one just gave me weird dreams, to be honest. Alright, so for Jack the Ripper, we're going to start in London in 1888, where there ain't no electricity or, I don't know, normal things we're used to, right? So you got all these gas lamps that someone has to go light, and then someone has to go turn off and damper out. And so the gas lamps, they flicker in the fog. There's horse-drawn carriages, and there's tons of people like cramped and poverty, and I don't know, I feel like the closer you are with a bunch of people, the easier it is for someone to get sick. And I hope that's not what's happening here. But in Whitechapel District is what it was called. It looks like fear was spreading between the alleys, mostly because, again, they're dark. Can't just flip on that light. And between August and November of that year, there was a series of brutal murders that had shocked the Victorian England and captivated the world. The killer, no one ever caught, but he did leave behind letters and very disgusting crime scenes. I don't mean like filthy dirty. I mean like bloody body parts, nasty. One of the most famous ones, though, was by Jack the Ripper. So to understand the murders, we're going to first need to understand Whitechapel in 1888. The East End of London was one of the poorest places in the whole British Empire. Like I was saying, overcrowding was extreme. Tens of thousands of people, many of them lived in these narrow streets packed with lodging houses. Several were immigrants. Rooms often held multiple families. And some historians estimated over 80,000 people lived in Whitechapel District. Just Whitechapel. Poverty obviously was everywhere. You know, if you got several people living in a home, kind of red flag here. Many people did survive on casual labor day jobs that paid just enough to get food for the night and their daily dose of alcohol, which seemed to have become a problem. So alcoholism was definitely a problem, which can also cause the crime rates to skyrocket, which I also feel is part of the problem. And prostitution, yeah. Easy way to make money. But that was the only way that women could make enough money to survive. So street prostitution didn't necessarily mean what people imagine today. Although I have seen quite enough movies that I feel like I have a pretty good idea. So if they couldn't get those 4 pennies, cost 4 pennies, was the price of a bed and lodging house for the night, then you slept on them cold bricks. And we're going to pause for a little ad break. And we're back. All right, so August 31st, 1888. There was a woman named Mary Ann Nichols. She was found murdered in Bucks Row. She was 43, and her throat had been cut. Her abdomen mutilated, so I'm assuming open and, things missing. The police potentially believed that the murder was just another violent crime in the rough district within those days. They realized something much, much darker was going on. The historians generally agree on 5 victims that are to be claimed by Jack the Ripper. They are known as the Canonical 5. Don't quote me, but I feel like I butchered that. But that would be Mary Ann Nichols. She was killed August 31st. That is way too close to my birthday. In 1888. Obviously, I was not born then. So we'll just pay attention to the first part of the numbers. But she'd been homeless and struggling with alcoholism, and her body showed severe abdominal mutilation. That's such a hard... It's a simple word, but good God, get it together. Okay, second one. Annie Chapman. She was killed September 8th, 1888. And her murder was even more shocking. Her abdomen had been opened and parts were missing now. The investigators believed that the killer had surgical knowledge, which, if I remember correctly, I feel like the blade lines were very smooth and they knew where the parts were. So it's not like it was just a cut, torn open, digging, moving things, and looking. They knew. And I think if I remember right also, it was several parts missing from several different people. It wasn't the same part. Anyway, Elizabeth Stride was the third. She was killed September 30th. So that was only, 22 days later? Yeah. Same year, obviously, 1888. Stride's murder was different, though. Her throat was cut, and there was no mutilations. But many experts believe that the killer may have been interrupted before he could continue. Catherine Eddowes. She was killed less than an hour after Stride. Oh, shit. Not days, an hour. Got it. So the night became known as a double event. Eddowes' body showed the most extensive mutilations, probably because they were pissed that they got interrupted. Her face had been slashed, her abdomen was opened, and part of her kidney had been removed. No one wants the whole kidney, just some. Good quarter. Maybe the healthiest part. Kidney soup. All right. And unlike the others, Kelly was killed indoors in her small apartment. Her mutilation was so extreme that the police officers reportedly fainted at the scene. Wenches. After the murders, though, there was no more killing. It became famous because of the media. It also became worldwide because of the media. Newspapers covered every single detail, and then letters began arriving. The most famous was signed by Jack the Ripper. This letter was addressed to Central News Agency. And this was in September 1888, but it doesn't have a date of when. But this is what it said. I keep on hearing the police have caught me, but they won't fix me just yet. Another letter, known as the From Hell letter, included something even more disturbing. Remember that kidney that was missing? Yeah, half a human kidney was there. Some historians do believe, though, that this kidney may have belonged to Catherine Eddowes. I mean, it makes sense, right? I don't think he was like Jeffrey Dahmer eat it style. I think. Anyway. However, though, many experts think that the letters were journalistic hoaxes designed to sell newspapers. But I disagree. And the investigation was led by a man named Charles Warren. He was head of the I'm going to butcher this here, Metropolitan Police Department. Metropolitan. Oh my God. It is too early, guys. This bloom has not kicked in. Oh, shoot me now. All right. At its peak of the case, this involved hundreds of police officers, thousands of interviews, several door-to-door searches across Whitechapel district. Victorian police had major limitations, though. Nothing like what we got today. No fingerprints, no DNA, no modern forensic science. They basically relied on witness statements. So we're asking drunk people and homeless people and prostitutes for statements. So this sounds sounds promising, right? So they were mostly contradictory, which makes sense. And we're gonna pause for an ad break real quick. Over the past century, dozens of suspects have been proposed. Some of the most famous included Montague John Druitt. If that doesn't sound fancy, I'm not sure what does. He was a barrister and a school teacher. He died shortly after the final murder, leading some investigators to suspect suicide after committing the crimes. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't think so. Then it looks like they also looked at Aaron Kosminski. He was a Polish immigrant and a barber living in Whitechapel, which means he would have that sharp knife and would have to have a steady hand, right? I mean, unless you're going to be nicking people the whole time. He did suffer from a mental health disorder, and he was later institutionalized. Many modern historians consider him a strong suspect. So, I mean, I kind of agree to that, right? He's got the tools already readily available, steady hand, and not mentally stable. I'd say he's on the list. And then it looks like we got a George Chapman. He was a serial poisoner executed in 1903, but no one was poisoned, so No. I feel like that's a doo-doo option. Straight garbage. They believed he may have previously been the Ripper, but I don't think so. I think that's an idiot choice. Walmart. Oh my God. Walter Sickert. He was a famous painter, which means steady hand. Painters have all kinds of random tools, so it's possible. Modern books and documentaries accuse him, although historians widely dispute this theory. I can kind of agree with that. So there's several reasons that the Ripper was never caught. One, Victorian forensic science was primitive. Makes sense. I mean, for God's sakes, we're lighting lamps with a match in the street. 2, Whitechapel was extremely crowded, making it easy for someone to disappear. Also makes sense. And the police department did not share information well. The City of London Police and the Metropolitan Police. They actually investigated different crime scenes, which created confusion. And finally, may have simply stopped or left London. The killer may have just vanished. The Ripper murders were among the first modern media sensations, though. The newspapers, which I'm kind of shocked actually, but they literally detailed the crime scenes. Every little piece that they would know or the police department would know, they'd put in the paper. So then you couldn't really question someone what was at the scene and what wasn't to see if it was actually them. Sketches of the suspects, which it's kind of hard if several people's information doesn't match, right? Rumors and speculation, so giving false information. But the constant coverage, it helped turn the killer into a legend. So that's why the fact the name Jack the Ripper was likely invented was probably from a journalist. Today, the mystery still fascinates people, though. I mean, I find it fascinating. I think the movie, oh my God, it's a Holmes movie. Anyway, the Holmes movie, I think, kind of gears towards that as well. Kind of hints at it, actually. Good movie. There is an entire academic field devoted to this case called the Ripperology. You should check that out. It's pretty interesting. Books, documentaries, and tours of the East End still continue. They examine the evidence still, although I can't imagine there would be much left, to be honest, but whatever. I mean, God, the body's got to be decayed by now, right? Anyway, modern historians increasingly emphasize something important, though. The victims. For decades, the women were often overshadowed by the killer's legend. But research shows now telling their stories and restoring their humanity can now focus on the victims. They weren't just victims. They were someone's daughter, mothers, friends, survivors of extreme poverty and just taken out like trash. Used, really, because if I remember right, never was signs of forced entry, which means, half the girls are prostituting, right? So they're going to invite in someone that they think is going to spend that 4 shillings for good time. So that kind of makes it difficult, but you can't tell me there's no hair, there's no skin cells, but still, back then, what are you going to use to do that? Examine that. More than a century later, the identity of Jack the Ripper remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries. Was he a doctor? Possibly. A butcher? Could have been, but I feel like they more hack at the meat. But again, back then, I feel like you didn't have the tools that we have now, so it's possible. Or just a local resident hiding in plain sight. Someone who vanished forever into the fog of Victorian London. We'll never know, but the story does continue to haunt the streets of Whitechapel and the imaginations of people around the world. Obviously, he'd be dead by now, so nothing I would worry too much about, but still. We're going to pause for an ad break. Should be the last one. Welcome back. All right. Now, we always talk about a recipe, and I am not British. I am Irish, so it's a little difficult. But I found a recipe that is a British sweet treat this time, which is something I will never eat because I don't like carrot cake, but my husband does. So, carrot cake with cardamom and labneh frosting. You are going to do weird measurements this time. So you're going to do 155 milliliters of sunflower oil, 230 grams of self-rising flour, 1 teaspoon baking powder, half a teaspoon of salt, 1.5 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, half a teaspoon of nutmeg, half a teaspoon of ginger, 1 teaspoon of cardamom, 230 grams of light, soft brown sugar. And optional is 100 grams of walnuts, but I'm pretty sure that they would put it in there. And 260 grams of grated carrots with 3 eggs beaten. For the frosting, you're going to do half a teaspoon of salt, 500 grams thick Greek-style yogurt, 30 grams of icing sugar. They say to sift it, but honestly, I just throw it from the bag into the bowl. It'll figure itself out in the oven. 30 grams of honey and half a teaspoon of ground cardamom. So you can make the icing first and let it sit. For the carrot cake, you're going to preheat your oven to, good luck figuring this out, 180 Celsius to 160 Celsius. I'll have to figure that out for you. You're going to put it in two 18-centimeter round tins. God, what are those? I don't know. It's too much. Or this early in the morning. Oh, my God. So in a large bowl, you're going to put the flour, the baking powder, cinnamon, nutmeg, ginger, and cardamom. You're going to mix. Then you're going to add to the walnuts after you've roasted them for a little bit in the oven as it heats up. And you're going to wash and peel them carrots. Go ahead and get those grated. Afterwards, large bowl. Add your walnuts, your carrots, brown sugar, and you're going to stir until everything is coated. I don't do walnuts. Or I do walnuts, but I don't do raisins. So if you want to toss in some raisins, have at it, but I think they're gross. So walnuts and carrots. And then you're going to add the beaten eggs, sunflower oil to the bowl. And you're going to mix well. And then you're going to mix everything together. And you're going to pour it evenly as you can into the two tins. You're going to bake for 25 to 35 minutes. So in between that time, take that toothpick, take that knife, put it in there. Make sure when you test it, nothing comes out on the knife or the toothpick. Once that's done, you're going to leave it on a cooling rack or put it on that granite countertop. It will pull out all the heat and moisture and make it wonderful. All right, so to finish it up, you are going to ice the bottom layer after you take it out. And then you're going to put the top cake on. You're going to ice it again, go all the way around. Decorate it as you please. Or for me, throw it in the trash because it is not something I'd eat. But I'd try it. I would try it once. Just one time. Well, I do want to thank everyone for spending your morning with me and dealing with a recipe that I'm probably never ever going to eat. But if you make it, let me know. I'll try it and probably let you keep it. Again, sponsors that keep this podcast going. Bloom Sparkling Energy. Make sure you get one. It is full of vitamins, crisp, refreshing taste, and it's not packed with that unnecessary sugar giving you that crash. This is a great pick-me-up. As well as blood donation. That is pretty close to my heart. As both my grandparents have always donated blood, it has always become a thing I've been afraid of, but finally tried this year. They are in need. O negative blood. Remember, your one donation can save several lives. Whether someone needs it for a surgery, someone had an accident, or maybe a newborn baby. They would appreciate anything and everything. Make sure you sign up for the Rapid Pass. You will earn rewards as well. You can get merch. We will see you guys on our next episode, and I do appreciate you joining in. Thank you.